But the major headline for me coming out of last night was what Bryce Harper had to say. And he is not wrong by any means. Would you think, oh, a bad teammate, you got to keep that stuff in the clubhouse and all that? Not necessarily. Bryce Harper has never been one to be quiet. And there's no better example of that than listening to him talk about JT Realmuto over the years and how the Phillies needed to re-sign him. And even just going through extended spring training last year when they were at Citizens Bank Park and JT Realmuto was hitting home runs in batting practice or simulation games, whatever. And you have Bryce Harper yelling back to ownership, sign him. And then, of course, the fans took over from that. No better example than the Fandemic crew taking up that cause. So Bryce Harper is not shy about telling you what he wants the team to do. And last night he's telling you, we need more pitching. We need more consistent pitching. We can't continue to say, Vince Velasquez, go out there every fifth day. We can't look at a guy like Matt Moore and say, hey, guess what? Go out there every fifth day. That's not how this team is going to win the division. It's certainly not how this team is even going to come close to competing for a wild card. And last night, you have the Braves just stomping the Mets. Jared Eichhoff, man, his numbers now pitching for the Mets are just insanely terrible. He's having his best starts for the Phillies for the Mets, as the old joke would go. But the Phillies need to step up here, and they need to get some pitching help. And last night they tried. So let's follow the bouncing ball, folks. This is what we had happen last night. So I'm getting ready to go to the Ertz Family Foundation event. And I see a little report here from Jason Stark, Hall of Fame writer, formerly the Inquirer. Jason Stark puts this out here. Left-handed pitcher Tyler Anderson scheduled to start for the Pirates tonight, but multiple sources say that's not likely to happen. The Pirates are in serious conversation to trade him to the Phillies for 2 second-tier prospects. When you see the second tier, it feels more like third tier, and we'll get to that in a minute. But that comes out. And that's before I'm gonna get ready to go to the event. I'm thinking, all right, this is great. Phillies are going to make some moves. The ball, it started already. And my first thought, again, was if Zach Eflin doesn't get hurt, they're not making this deal. So they go out and they make the deal. At least they attempt to make the deal. Follow the bouncing ball. Next up here, Jason Stark has a little side note here just to continue, just to make you think about that threshold, that luxury tax threshold. He puts this out there. One more note on the Phillies Tyler Anderson deal. He's owed about $1 million the rest of the season. That leaves the Phillies with about $3 million under the luxury tax threshold. One rival exec said today they're going over the threshold if they need to. That's not even an issue. All right, Dave Dombrowski, John Middleton, the Buck cousins running this ship. Good on you. Not afraid to go over the threshold. We always thought that threshold was ironclad. We thought it was a gate with a giant lock on it saying, yeah, you're not going past here. You're not going past this velvet rope, whatever it might be. And that seems to not be a problem at all, at least not this year. So when you start talking about a guy like Chris Bryant, when you start talking about a guy like Craig Kimbrell and the money they're owed on their deals, the money's no object right now for the Phillies. And if they're going to go over that luxury tax, they're going to make it worth it. I'll tell you that much. So we continue. This is where things get a little dicey. Ken Rosenthal, 6 o'clock last night, starts to rain on People's Parade. Love Ken Rosenthal. And here's the tweet. The Pirates' trade of Tyler Anderson to the Phillies has been held up because of an issue, presumably medical. He was right. With one of the 2 players going back to Pittsburgh, according to a source with knowledge of the situation. Unclear where talks stand, whether player will be replaced or not. So the 2 players that were involved in the deal for Tyler Anderson are guys that are in the single A level. 20-year-old right-handed pitcher Christian Hernandez and a 21-year-old, I believe, catching prospect Abraham Gutierrez. One of those 2 players had a medical issue, reportedly, and that's why the deal didn't go through. We close it out with Jeff Passan of ESPN, who tweets this out. The Seattle Mariners, people, the Mariners, they're finalizing a deal to acquire Tyler Anderson from the Pirates. Pirates thought they had a deal done for Anderson with Philadelphia, but it fell through on medical review. Seattle, they went and got him instead. It then gets rounded out by Ken Rosenthal simply saying he identifies the one of the players that was going back there had a medical issue, essentially, I think failed the physical is the old way to put that. No idea what that issue is, but Phillies had somebody slip right through their fingers that would have made them a better baseball team. And following Jason Starks tweeting about this and putting out numbers and all that stuff, he went back and looked at their starts throughout the season. And it was something along the lines of Tyler Anderson in 18 starts has gone at least five innings in 18 starts this season. He's at least gone 5 innings in all 18 of them. Vince Velasquez has gone 6. 6 of 18 starts. He's gone 5 or more innings. At least 5 innings. So, yeah, he at least would have been an upgrade. And that's all we're talking about, is being better than what you have right now. That's it. That's why when I talk about Cole Hamels, if he's good enough to be a pitcher in Major League Baseball, then maybe he's probably better than Matt Moore. He's probably even better than Chase Anderson. Hey, remember that name? He's probably better than Vince Velasquez. That's it. We're not looking for him to come in here and be a number 1, number 2, even number 3 starter. We're looking for somebody to come in here and be a number 4 starter. So when you look at some positives here, there's 2 positives. One, the Phillies are already looking to make deals to at least make the back end of the rotation better, and that's what Tyler Anderson signifies. The other thing is, man, that's a low buy right there. That's not an expensive cost. You had Jason Stark describe them as second-tier prospects. Yeah, the guys are down in a single A, 20 and 21-year-old. If that's all you're going to be giving up to get a back end of the rotation type guy, then you know what? Dave Dombrowski wasn't lying when he told you he had things in the cupboard, willing to trade, willing to wheel and deal to bring in another starting pitcher to Philadelphia. So as far as that's concerned, anything else that you're talking about, maybe adding Craig Kimbrell, maybe adding a Chris Bryant, I still think they don't have what it takes to get him. So that's a fish a wish, perfect scenario. That ain't happening as far as I'm concerned. I'd love to see it happen. I'm rooting for it. I'm not betting on it. As I like to say. But when it comes to somebody else like Rodriguez or Kimbrell, maybe you do have enough without having to give up any of your top-tier prospects in a Bryson Stott, for instance, even a Mickey Moniak maybe. I don't think you're going to have to give those guys up in order to bring in a Craig Kimbrell or bring in Rodriguez or bring in anybody else of somewhat decent note that are going to be have a big impact on this team. I'm still rooting for the Aaron Nola that we saw just pitch the other night to be the guy that we see for the vast majority of the rest of this season. Because as I said yesterday, that right there will be the biggest attribute or acquisition the Phillies can make for the second half of the season after the All-Star break, is getting that version of Aaron Nola. Him and Zach Wheeler at the top of the rotation. That's the party you want to see for the rest of the year. You round out the rotation by adding another veteran arm, which is what Tyler Anderson would have been. Things will be looking up for the Phils. And yeah, if their bats can stay hot, and they still scored for you last night. They still had back-to-back home runs, including the inside the park home run by BRYCE Harper, which was great. They still put up runs. It just would have been nice to have we talk about bullpen help all the time. They still need some help when it comes to this Phillies team and the rotation. So bullpen is great. We got to get help there. But when it comes to the rotation, they needed a lot of help there as well. We can't leave that out of the equation. I know we focus on the bullpen, but we got to keep adding to the rotation. The Phillies have to keep adding to the rotation. And here we are, 2 days away from the MLB trade deadline. I'm excited. I think there is a significant move coming. I think it's a move that will get people excited in Philadelphia for the first time about playoff baseball in quite some time. And I go back to, and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, there's a couple of things that need to happen here, and I think this is a good roster to have. I think this is a good roster to make additions to, and this is the comparison I'll make. A couple of years ago, Phillies made some good acquisitions at the deadline. Matt Klentak made some good acquisitions at the deadline. Wilson Ramos was one of the guys he added. Asdrubal Cabrera was one of the guys that he added. He got some bullpen help as well. So the Phillies added some guys at the deadline that you thought would have taken them over the top. Everywhere else, though, it was too young a team. I mean, Rhys Hoskins was still being looked at as a guy to be carrying this team as a team leader. Not ready to do that. This team, I think, with Bryce Harper, with JT Realmuto, and Rhys Hoskins already here, Andrew McCutchen, Gene Segura, I think you have enough veterans on this team, enough good hitters on this team, to the point where if you get a little bit more of the starting pitching, you get a little bit more of the bullpen help, especially a closer, a significant closer, a legitimate, bona fide closer, Kimbrell, then I think you'll have enough to be able to get past the Mets, sustain what the Braves might be doing in the second half of the year as well, despite losing Acuna. I think you'll have enough to get you over the top because of the core that you already have in place. Before, the core that you had when you made some good trade deadline acquisitions, like Matt Klentak did do. I don't think the core was good enough to withstand what was going to happen in the second half of the season despite adding. I think you have a good enough core right now where you can add a couple of more pieces and you can start really talking about the playoffs. But from the outside looking in is kind of how the Phillies are looking at the playoffs right now after last night, after losing, and then seeing the Braves pass them in the standings with how they handled the Mets. So there's a lot the Phillies have to do, but I think a couple of pieces right there will put them over the top in terms of really contending and almost promising you those meaningful games in September, which right now, that's all I'm rooting for. That's what I'm crossing my fingers for. Give me those meaningful games in September, please, and thank you.